This
further attack.
conference will now be recorded.
So this is the stage where attackers try to, you know, have connections or maintain the connections to the victim machines without victim's knowledge. Okay, and whenever they want, they can, attacker then can, again gain access to the systems to perform further, advanced level of attacks such as distributed denial of service attack. Okay, with the help of botnet networks. Okay, so for last part of the phase is clearing or covering tracks. So this is the phase where attacker will be erasing or manipulating or deleting the tracks so that a path which they follow to hacked. Okay, so that no one can able to find out from which source of attack is calmed, or they just want to maintain themselves as a anonymous. Okay, so here I always say a good hacker is one who hack the system, but a great hacker is one who hack the system and no one can trace them back. Okay, so then ethical hacking. So what is the ethical hacking? Ethical hacking is nothing but ethical hackers or ethical hacking, the person who performs penetration testing, security testing, or vulnerability assessment or penetration testing. It has different terminologies associated with white hat hackers, ethical hackers, ethical hacking. Okay, it involves the use of hacking tools, tricks, and techniques to identify the vulnerabilities and ensure system security. So but it is with the permission of concerns authorities. Okay, so that is the difference between hacker and ethical hacker. Why ethical hacking is necessary? Ethical hacking is necessary because you have to, if for an example, let's say how police will work, they will think like a thief. Okay, if there is a something is happened, let's say some store is been, somebody is robbed the whole store of a jewelry store. Okay, so what will police do? When will they visit? First they will seal the area. After that they will started analyzing the situation and how thief enters to the jewelry shop and robbed it. They will analyze which path they followed, which road, the street they have come, and which street they used to go out and all that. Okay, so for that reason, similarly in our field also, to beat a hacker we need to think like one. Okay, so why do we need organization need to have a ethical hackers? To because to prevent hackers from hacking access to the information organizations information system, to uncover the vulnerabilities in systems and explore their potential as a security risk, to analyze and strengthen an organization security posture, including policies, network protection, infrastructure, and end user practices, safeguard customer data, enhance security awareness at all levels in a business, to provide adequate preventive measures in order to avoid security breaches. So that is why organizations need to recruit ethical hackers, so that if otherwise hackers will hack them, before that ethical hacker will evaluate the weakness and ensure the system's network application security. So then what are the skills an ethical hacker has to possess? So for that reason I always tell them ethical hacker has to be a technical skills. Okay, why? Because you need to know some system administration knowledge, you need to know networking knowledge, you need to know scripting knowledge. So these are the three broadly divided knowledge is required. From scripting point of view, bash, python, perl scripting is very very much required. Okay, so if you guys have no knowledge, then what you can do is you can go to this particular sans site and you can refer sans act and go to this free online courses and just complete this prerequisite course. Okay, by going to tutorials you can get all the videos and pdf and everything. And you can see here in system administration based on the linux, windows, networking concepts, and scripting, powershell, python, and bash scriptings. I'm just posting this in our group, I mean chat window. Okay, so these are the things you can complete so that you should be ready for ethical hacking's prerequisite skills. Okay, then non-technical skills. Why non-technical skills is required? I'll give you the scenario which I have faced in my career. Okay, so when you're doing ethical hacking or penetration testing for a website or network, so what happens? Sometimes your customer, end customer or client, you call it, okay, for they will contact you. Okay, they will make call you. Okay, so for that reason you need to understand people skills. You need to understand how you can work ethics and problem solving communication skills. Okay, when you talk with them, how you can convince them that yeah, there are certain issues which we are working and we'll get it fixed. Okay, so that is what we called as a non-technical skills, like people skills, networking skills, soft skills, communication skills. So these are things also required for, and very much require English writing skills. Okay, because you have to write a report, you have to write a present the scenarios to your in your report to client to understand what is the problem and how to fix that. Also you have to suggest being an ethical hacker. So the suggestions which we give them to fix the problem, which is very easy to, which we can get it from online also. Then we have different type of controls, that controls which we can use to apply and fix the problems, like defense in depth. Defense in depth is nothing but it's a security strategy where you can say, several protection layer are placed throughout on a systems. Okay, and it helps to prevent direct attacks against system and its data, because a break in one layer only leads the attacker to the next layer. Okay, so which we call defense in you know in depth. Okay, this is actually a concept, you can call it, used in information security, in which multiple layer of security controls are placed throughout an information technology systems to protect, okay, each and every layers. Okay, if attacker is successfully hacked to one layer, then only they can go to next layer, right? So defense in depth will help us to place security, multiple layer of security controls throughout information technology systems, so that we can defend the attack. Then what is a risk? Risk is nothing but it's, you can say, degree of uncertainty or expectations that an adverse event may cause damage to the systems. So risk metric is used to scale risk by considering the probability, likelihood and consequences or impact of the risk. Okay, so here you can see we have different type of risk levels, then we have different type of risk matrix and all that. Okay, so this is a example of risk matrix, but organizations need to create their own risk matrix. Okay, and based on their business need. Okay, so risk assessment. Okay, risk management and risk assessment. Okay, so risk management process. Here let me, I'll give you one more example. Okay, risk is, this risk matrix is based on the likelihood, impact and so consequence or you know impact of the risk. Okay, so probability you can see here, likelihood you can see here, how much likelihood and what would be the consequences or impact. Okay, for an example, for this case, for an example, let's say, um, you can say here, so sorry. So here we have a, let's say, what you called as a street. Okay, or you called as a road. Okay, So here let's say there is a small girl is standing and she wants to cross the road. So she wants to cross the road. Okay. So now you tell me here, let's say if I place some bicycle, one bicycle, what is the probability of meeting accident? And bicycle is running in a 10 per kilometers. It should be very less, isn't it? Similarly, and if she meets with accident with the bicycle, what would be the consequence or impact? Impact will be like some scratch or some wound, right? She won't die, right? If she is meeting an accident with a bicycle, she won't die, isn't it? So that is why we are just need to calculate likelihood, okay, and impact, okay. Similarly, if in case of one bicycle, if I place many bicycles, okay, what will happen? Likelihood will, chances of getting accident will be high, but consequences or impact will be still low. Okay, what if I replace cycle with truck with high speed? If I place one, so likelihood also less, okay, but impact will be very high. If I places multiple trucks with high speed, then likelihood also be high and impact will be also high. So similarly, when you calculate or create your own risk matrix, you have to analyze your business, and the demands and impacts and all that based on the threats or the vulnerabilities. So based on that, you can calculate the risk matrix of your own organization. Then we have a risk management process. So this process helps us to reducing or maintaining risk at an acceptable level. Acceptable level means you cannot be go and fix each and everything. You cannot achieve 100% security. Okay, so you have to be achieve optimal level. That is what we call acceptable level by means of a well-defined and actively employed security programs. First is risk identification. In this phase of risk management process, what we do, we find out what are the essential functional function has two functions, okay, and essential functional function essential functions only work when an essential or critical asset will able to work. Okay, in risk identification, we find out the sources or causes and consequences, now other detail of external and internal risk affecting the security of organization. Risk assessment usually we follow with the help of likelihood and impact of the risk. That is what I have explained you, that we call, yeah, or by doing survey or asking questions or finding the likelihood and impact of the risk. That is how you can do, that is we call qualitative risk assessment. Okay, what we call qualitative risk assessment. Okay, qualitative risk assessment is something which we are trying to ask the persons how many times you have changed the password, what is the last time you modify the passwords, so like that. Okay, and so we have to be very very careful and we have to do these things. Okay, then we have to do quantitative risk analysis. Okay, so quantitative risk analysis we calculated based on the formulas. Okay, so the formula is annual loss expectancy equal to single loss expectancy into annual rate of occurrence or annualized rate of occurrence. Okay, so this is we call annual loss expectancy. So single loss expectancy is equal to asset value into the exposure factor. Okay, so here exposure factor means, for example, if one attack happened, let's say one ransomware attack happened, okay, in that aspect, if one attack has happened, so what would be the how much data has been lost, what are the percentage of damages happened. That is what we call exposure factor. Okay, so usually exposure factor can be 4%, 10%, 1%, okay, like that. So if let's say I have a server which is $1,000, okay, so $1,000 server, okay, so this is we are $1,000 server, and exposure factor per attack, let's say 4% only, okay. So what would be the single loss expectancy as per this formula? So asset value will be $1,000 into, you can say, exposure factors is 44%. So that means in a single loss we are losing kind of you can calculate that way, divided by 100, so it will be 40, isn't it? So $40 will be in a single attack. If attack is happened in a year twice, then you can call it as a total loss, or annual loss expectancy will be $80. Okay, you can see that, isn't it? So here you can see that the losses which we are calculated in this formula, which we call tangible cost, okay, what we call tangible cost, okay. There are some intangible cost also, okay. Intangible cost means you cannot fulfill that in monetary ways, like your company's brand value, your company's reputation, your company's market value. If somebody knows that you are not capable of enough of securing your own website, then anybody else, or or no one will wants to have a business with you, right? So that we call intangible cost. So the cost which I have calculated, that is we call tangible cost, okay. Okay, so this is we call intangible cost. I hope you understood. Any doubt on this? Any doubt, guys?
No, I guess.
Okay. So this is how we can calculate risk assessment. Then risk treatment. Then we have to select the appropriate controls to identify the risk so that we can reduce the risk. Okay. Then risk tracking, to ensure that the controls which we have implemented has handle the known risk and calculate the chances of new risk occurring. Okay. Then risk review, then I will evaluate the performance of the implemented risk management strategies and see there won't be any controlled risk. Controlled risk is nothing but it is a thing, something like if your controls which you have applied, if that is not working as per the expectations, then which we call control risk, is the technique which we have to apply again to do again, evaluating risk and doing reprioritizing the risk and getting the controls to place so that risk can be mitigated, or to have a minimal risk which can be acceptable level. Then cyber threat intelligence. So cyber threat intelligence is defined as the collection of, okay, so cyber threat intelligence is we call collection and analysis of information about the threats and adversaries, and the drawing of patterns that provide the ability to make knowledgeable decision for the preparedness, prevention, and response actions against various cyber attacks. Okay, so cyber threat intelligence are broadly four types. One is strategically, another is in tactical, technical, and operationals. Actually, cyber threat intelligence will help us to inform the cybersecurity team whether the attack is happen on them or not, and who is in the next target list, or if any new attack comes to, they will first find out such information and they will inform to their cybersecurity team, like a forensic team, or penetration team, or SOC team, to make sure for the for ready to tackle such attacks. Okay, it's for an example, you can say we have in our country also some intelligence team, like which we call raw, or we call in Pakistan they have SIMI and ISI or something like that, right? So what will happen when you have a raw agent? What they will do, they will collect some intel report before any terrorist attack happen in our country. Similarly, the cyber threat intelligence team will try to find out such as informations which can be helps to their team to get ready for future attacks and be prepared for how to tackle it. Okay, then we have a threat modeling. Threat modeling is nothing but it is a risk assessment approach which we are using for analyzing the security of an application by or capturing and organizing, or organizing, analyzing all the information that affects the security of the application. Okay, so threat modeling is the process help us how much efforts to be needs to be put for towards subsequent steps, identify the components, data flows, and trust boundaries, helps to find out more relevant and more detailed threats, helps to identify threats relevant to the control scenario, context using information obtained in step 2 and 3, then finally identify weakness related to the threats found using vulnerability categories. Let's see how practically we can do. So in here, I'm going to use Microsoft threat modeling tool. Okay, this is a open source tool, but they have also paid version. So here I'm already created a already model, so I'm just using that. So double clicking that. So here you can see we have an applications that is using HTTP and not HTTPS to access the web application. The web application again gather information to web server using UDP. Then again web server use the cloud or database storage to collect the information. So let's say this is our applications which you can draw with the help of generic processes and all that. So when you are able to draw, finally what you can do is you can click into view, and click here in view, click here analysis view. So they will analyze in each and every layer of the security and tell us which layer or the of the security it is having some vulnerabilities and all that. Okay, so here what you can see is we can see we will be getting lot of issues, like cross-site scripting attack can be possible. Which place they are talking about cross-site scripting is possible, we can go and analyze like this. So from here to here there's telling to from user to web application cross-site scripting tampering is possible. Then like weak authentication escape from web application to web server possible. Elevation using impersonations which call privilege escalations which we discussed. Weak credential storage can be having here. So what they are doing is threat modeling, they are giving a clue or informations of what type of attack or what type of threat is associated with based on the application which we have drawn here. Okay, so then based on that we have to prepare, either we can implement control or we do fixations in code labels so that we can get ready for or tackle this type of issues. Okay, so this is we do before applications go to productions and public release. The threat modeling happen in the design phase of SDLC process. Who does the threat modeling? Security expert people do that. Okay, in threat modeling also we follow stride and dread method, where you have to be right security case, use case to security case, then abuse case. Okay, all that. So everything does by us. Use case means usually for website development, developer gets some use case to prepare the website, right? From that use cases we started writing abuse case. Abuse case means a negative scenario of all the use case. For an example, let's say you have an application. In their application, let's say you have a login page. In the login page you typing username password and getting into login access, right? So if it is the URL is HTTP. So here abuse case can be someone can perform man in middle attack and all that. Someone can run sniffers to sniff the username passwords and all that. So security case will be how we can fix these abuse cases. Okay, so that is what we do. We call threat modeling using stride and dread method. That is from Microsoft. So then incident handling and response. Even after doing all those things, still we know that we are human being. We may make mistake, and that mistake leads to the error, and that error leads to fault. Okay, and that fault leads to the attack on our premises. If attack happens, the how our incident handling and response team will tackle this. Okay, so incident handling and response team will be following the process of taking organized and careful steps when reacting to incident, our security incident or cyber attacks. Okay, so for that what they do, first they will do prepare and they will perform incident recording and assignments. Then they perform in triage will help them to classify the incident and find out the incident, whether it is a security incident or not. And if it is security incident, what's which category of security incident, then they will be define the severity level. Then they will prioritize based on the severity level. Then finally they will be notifying to the stakeholders that yeah, attack is happened on us. This is a ransomware attack happened or what type of attack happened. Sometimes it may be required to you have to notify to praise peoples and all that. Containment will help you to stop the spreading the issues. For an example, let's say one of your server is got attacked with ransomware attack. Okay, what is a ransomware attack? Anyone can tell? Anyone
It
wants
was a
to?
DDoS attack.
It has a DDoS attack. Who said this?
Let's check.
Ransomware attack, man. No, no.
Like it was on XP where they have to pay money to gain access for our own computers like that for most of the
Yeah.
XP.
So ransomware attack is nothing but where attacker will encrypt all the victim's files into a common format. It will not able to open, so victim will not able to open any files folders. Okay, and he has only one index page of HTML Windows link index page. When you click, it will open the tab and ask you some money in for decryptions key. Okay, and for that what they will do will they will be able to simply mm, kind of what you call as they will demand money in cryptocurrency. Okay, and that cryptocurrency will help users. I mean, because why they ask money in cryptocurrency is because no one knows from which place the money comes and which place it goes. Okay, so that is what we call crypto, currencies. Okay, so this is a technique will happen, that is ransomware attack. And the latest example you can see, Assenger company are vulnerable, or affected with ransomware attack. So, and attackers are demanding $50 million. So, and they're demanding $50 million in exchange for 6 TB data. Okay, and some of the data also they release to public. Okay, so this is why it is very very much required. Okay, so that is what we call ransomware attack. Okay, so if ransomware attack is happened to one of the server, so what you can do is, first step, you have to disconnect the machine or the server from internet, so that it will not spread to other machines. Okay, that is the containment. Evidence gathering and forensic analysis, then now again you have to clone the whole hard disk and or make a image file, and therefore using that email files, forensic investigator will started finding the source or location from which attack is coming. In eradications will help you to fixations, or fixations means how to fix or how to decrypt, and how to recover, then recover the data which they have lost. Finally, post incident activity, it involves incident documentations, impact assessment, what will be the impact if such attack is happened, and what would be the review and revise policies. Then close the investigation, and finally document the incident, and with the lesson learned, you know and all that. Finally, last part of the module is, we have a different compliance also. Compliance that will talk about PCI DSS, compliance that will talk about um, kind of ISO 27001, compliance that can talk about HIPAA. So PCI DSS, you can see, payment card industry data security standard, is a proprietary information security standard for the organizations that can handle, okay, that can handle card holder, card holder information of major debit card, credit card. Then you can see ePOS, ATM, and POC, the purchase machine which we used to buy from shopping malls and or any shops, right? So PCI DSS, what they does, this is a standard of compliance, which most of the bank or Paytm they apply it. If you go to Paytm side, you can see here they have clearly mentioned that. You can see here PCI DSS. So which means that they're accredited with PCI DSS standards. And for your informations, from there is a bank called Cosmo Bank from Pune, which was got hacked, I think. Cosmo Bank, cyber attack, and they lost 94 crore rupees. Okay, it happened in the year of 2018. Okay, their server hacked. Okay, the main reason for their hack is because they have not done any penetration testing on their bank servers, and all the vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities, was existing on their bank, and even they did not follow any simple guidelines from PCI DSS, due to which their bank got hacked. Similarly, we have ISO 27001, which we call ISMS also. This is, this is a specific requirement for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving on information security management systems within the context of the organization. So it is intended to be suitable for several different type of use. So here you can see most of the organizations, if they have certified with ISO 27001 and all that, so they will be helping you or helping your organizations to be certified on that. Okay, so this is a compliance certifications for organization. So for an example, so they have 114 checklist. Okay, among 114 checklist, one of the checklist which is best for HR department, which says, okay, before hiring any employees, you must verify his background or her background with police. Okay, so here if HR departments is not following this particular one of the guidelines, then they won't able to certify with ISO 27000 standard. So this is mostly for the organizations who follow or who wants to say that they are following security compliance also for their organization. But PCIDS is for payment card industry, like all banks, Paytm, Google Pay and all that. Similarly, for healthcare, we have HIPAA. HIPAA has a guidelines for the how to maintain patients records or patients insurance informations, patients Aadhaar card or sensitive documents and all that. So HIPAA is the guidelines which we use for that. Okay. Similarly, we have different type of others, Digital Copyright Act and all that. They will help you to prevent your from copyright and all that. So GDPR usually we use or regulations introduced by the European Union. Okay, it is like they will be fine against the company who violates the end users privacy and security standards, with penalties reaching to tens of millions of euros, which happened with Facebook and Google also. So due to this particular compliance, lot of users or end users, when their personal data has been misused, like if you see in Facebook case, Facebook has sold all our data to Cambridge Analytica. Hope you heard about this news. And that particular happened, I think, in the year of 2008 to 2010. Okay, and those informations, Cambridge Analytica, which it found. Okay, so later on Facebook says this is the problem with third party Cambridge Analytica, it's not my mistake and all that blah blah steps. Okay, but finally they have accepted that, yeah, they have Cambridge Analytica company sold our personal data to the different or political parties, including BJP and Congress. Okay, so but Congress used that particular data and they own the election of in the year of 2010. That is what the Cambridge Analytica leaks comes to the picture. Okay, but in European Union country, if somebody is using or misusing, I mean misusing your personal data, they have to pay the fines to you. That is their GDPR compliance says that. Then we have different type of cyber laws in our countries and US also. In India, we have not very good, severe laws. But yeah, but if you go to US or UK, there if you try to search or scan port scanning for any companies, then you are doing illegal work. Okay. Similarly, if you go to Dubai's cyber laws, which it tell us that if you're trying to hack someone's Facebook account, you have to spend 3 years on jail and 3,000 dirham fine you have to pay. Okay, so like that, each and every country is have their own cyber laws, and that cyber laws, based on that, the citizen has to abide it with it. Okay, so that's all about your module. In this particular module, we understood what is the elements of information security, then information security attack, then information security warfare, then cyber kill chain methodologies, TTPs, tactics, techniques, and prevent procedures, and IOC's indicator of compromise. Then we understand basic of different type of hackers, who is hacker, how they differ from the ethical hackers, what are the approaches we have follow, and all that. So this module have we understood different type of cyber laws and all that. In the next chapter we'll be learning about footprinting and reconnaissance, so which will be starting tomorrow. Okay, so I have some more things to tell in this particular topic, like they have forgot to tell what is the difference between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. Vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. See, in vulnerability assessment, we run certain scanners tool and we evaluate the weakness inside the network or systems or applications, and we get it fixed. But in PT, we don't stop there by finding that, but we'll go another steps or further steps to see what are the information we can hack or how much data we can store, steal and all that. Okay, so PT is more in-depth steps and it exploits the vulnerability, whereas vulnerability assessment only focuses finding vulnerability and getting this fixed. Okay, then we have different approaches of penetration testing. Okay, so approaches which we call white box, gray box, then black box. In white box, usually you have a complete knowledge of the product which you are going to perform at PT. Maybe you are the internal employee of the company and you are doing PT for them. Gray box is you have partial knowledge about the product, and you may know, or they will share very limited information with you and you are performing PT. Black box, you have no knowledge, you are acting as an external consultant and you have to performing the PT. Okay, so these are the things which has left in the first chapter. In second chapter, which will start tomorrow,
Sir,
we'll started learning about how we can gather the information about the target. Okay, and how we can use the gather informations to help us to perform attack. Yeah, tell me, who's you have any question?
sir, please repeat what is black box.
Yeah, black box is a one type of approach which we follow to perform penetration testing. Okay, and that approach which usually done by the external consultant, where client will not share with you any information. Like let's say if you are going to perform penetration testing on Amazon sites, okay, and we know that Amazon sites has different usernames like admin, shipper, seller or buyer. So these are the different user account is associated with amazon.in. Okay, in this case what will attacker do? They will simply not get any test user account from these different profiles. But if you do white box, you will get it. Gray box you may not get, but in black box they will not share with you anything. They will say act as a hacker and perform as a external consultant angle. Okay, PT. Any other question, guys? Okay. If you have no questions, so then we can close now or wind up for the day. Tomorrow, I'll see you at 7 o'clock. Okay. And we will start learning about new chapter that is we call footprinting and reconnaissance, and we'll see what is the difference between footprinting and reconnaissance. We'll see how we can gather the information with the help of Google search engine, or which we call Google hacking, or we'll be seeing more details how we can perform open source intelligence, human source intelligence and all that. Okay, so that's all from my end
Hello,
for today's. Yeah, Karthik.
hello, sir.
Yeah, Karthik.
Sir, my question is, sir, can we make a Telegram group? Tomorrow I
Yeah, that
ask
is
you that.
yeah, thank you for asking, reminding me. That is Nirmala and Fiza, they will decide. I have yet to get updates from them. Okay, so just give me some more time. Okay, I'll come back with you on that. Okay,
So basically, my question is that so we can chat with you at any time.
but I'm a busy man, Karthik.
Yes.
I am a busy man, Karthik.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'll ask Nirmala's and Fiza's, okay, and we'll see the possibilities and all that, okay. We'll come up with the solution. No worries, Kartik. You will connect with me, no
Yes.
worries, okay. But I'll suggest to best utilize our sessions time, because also I have other sessions planned. Okay, even you ask on the Telegram, I may not be able to answer on that time. Okay, so best utilize always your class timing, where I'll be interacting and delivering the class, and I'll answering all your questions. Okay, so any other questions from anyone else?
Sir, and what about the documents,
Lokesh,
etc.
thank you
That
for asking the documents. So document you will be getting tomorrow. If we are going with Telegram group, so I will be sharing over there. Okay, if we are not going Telegram groups, then I will be sending to Nirmala or Fiza. They will share with you via email. Okay,
okay, sir. Thank you.
thank you, Lokesh.
And sir, please send recorded lecture also.
Sorry.
Sir, please send recorded lectures also.
That you have to request to Fiza or Nirmala. They will share with you recordings.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, guys. So see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Okay.
okay, sir. Bye.
Okay.
Bye,
Okay,
sir.
guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.